until the new year. A new year is upon us. And it's crazy because I really feel like this year flew by. Like, I just feel like it went by in 2.5 seconds. I don't know where the months went. December especially was literally a week. It was only a week. I'm not really sure why time is moving so fast, but it is, and here we are at the end of another year. And so usually what everyone's doing right now is, everyone including me, is figuring out, you know, their resolutions and figuring out like what they want to do for the next year and things like that. So I figured I'd take you along with me on my process of what I do towards the end of the year and how I try to set myself up for the next year, which will be 2024, which is in 2 days. That is so crazy. But yes, this video is going to be me taking you through my process of how I take stock of what I've been through in the past year and what I plan on taking with me or leaving as I move into the next year. So let's do it. For me personally, I always think it's so important to look back at what's happened in the past year, really reflect on it, really see what lessons have come up repeatedly in the last year, what kind of themes have come up repeatedly, looking at where you've excelled versus what places or areas of your life need a little bit more work. So for me, I noticed some themes that came up repeatedly over the last year and the lessons or wins that came from them. So my first theme that came up a lot was trust and surrender. And I've spoken a lot about both of these in like a few vlogs throughout the year because they kept coming up. And I knew walking into this year, this would be a year that I'd be stepping into the unknown. It was the end of a contract year for me. I truly did not know where I was going to end up. I did not know what I was going to end up doing. I really had no idea. And I'm someone who truthfully is very uncomfortable in the unknown. I like to know what's happening. I like to know kind of like who I'm around, what's the moving piece. I just like to know certain things, especially if like I'm the one who's leading the charge. Like if someone else is handling for me, different story. But if I'm the one, like in this case and in this scenario, it's just me. It's a one-man show. Like I'm the one who's kind of like managing my life right now. So I like to know what's happening. And so the fact that I knew I was gonna be walking into this year without knowing what the fuck was gonna be going on, I needed to tap into a really deep sense of trust within myself, within my path, within my faith, like really trusting and knowing that everything is going to work out the way it's meant to work out. And I've had to keep bringing myself back to that space because, again, being in the unknown, I was taken into spaces of anxiety and uncertainty and sometimes panic. But I had to keep reminding myself that I need to trust. I need to stop trying to control things that I literally don't have control over. Like this year, I had no other option but to surrender to whatever was happening because there was nothing I could do about it. Especially in terms of career, just because the end was coming regardless. You know what I mean? I couldn't slow it down. I didn't want to slow it down, but I couldn't do anything to change that. All I could do was try to make sure that I was putting myself in places and making sure that my mindset was in a good enough space so that when the change came, I could adapt to it quickly and move accordingly when the opportunity presented itself. So I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't keep reminding myself that I needed to trust and surrender in myself, in the universe, in my path, and kind of just surrender to where I'm being led intuitively. And so that's what I did. The next theme that came up repeatedly over the last year was the feeling of safety and security. Because I'm so uncomfortable with the unknown, it's easy for me to not feel safe within myself if I don't have control of what's happening around me. And so the theme of safety and security, I had to foster that within myself. This year really forced me to create that feeling of safety and security within instead of looking for it outside of me. It came up a lot for me in career, obviously, in relationships, in just different circumstances where I was feeling so unsure about where I stood, how safe I felt emotionally in these spaces, and it left me feeling pretty rattled. It triggered me a lot. And so because it kept coming up, I had to really look within and say, well, why am I allowing something outside of me to have such a huge impact on me? When what I should be doing is shifting all the focus and energy I'm putting into trying to figure out how to control or hold on or cling to certain things, people, scenarios. Instead of putting all my energy into that, I could be refocusing my energy back into myself so that I can create a sense of safety and security within myself so that the external factors aren't impacting me as deeply as they were. And so I noticed that and I started working on that because it kept coming up. So I noticed that when I shifted that focus, that energy back onto me and what I was doing and what I could control, which is myself, how I react to my emotions, I was able to create a sense of safety and security so that when things are not going my way, I know I can always come back home to myself. So what I really started incorporating this year was mantras. Every time I found myself in a space where I felt rattled or triggered or whatever the case may be, in my own time when I could, I would take a step back and acknowledge whether or not this was something I could control. And if it was something that was out of my control, I had this list of mantras that I would go to and it would switch my energy focus from that space back to me. And the mantra for this specific one was, I am firmly planted and deeply rooted. Like I am so grounded in who I am that nothing outside of me can uproot me. That's what I said repeatedly whenever I got into this space, and it really reminded me that whatever's happening outside of me does not impact the core of who I am, because I am safe and I'm secure within myself. And it's a work in progress, but I'm telling you, the mantras work. The next theme that came up for me was discipline and consistency. I remember in my interview video last year, I was like, I really want to get a routine down and really stick with it. And so I was trying different things in the beginning of the year. I had a really strict morning routine I was doing, and I had a really strict night routine I was doing that worked for a while. But what happened is what usually happens for me is I'll start something and then I'll kind of drift away from it in a way. And I've noticed that I do need structure, but I need fluidity within my structure. And so the routine that really worked for me was allowing myself to flow more in both morning and night. So still having the routine in place, but not focusing on the order, not focusing on the specific time, because even if I wake up later, I would make sure I always start my day off in that way. And for the night routine also, I changed it to at night I just make sure that I journal and I make sure that I end my night reading. And I could see the effects of being consistent with that, because it really allowed me to stay connected with myself. I really feel a much deeper, solid connection with who I am, because I spent so much time being aware of my emotions and in turn allowing myself to be accountable for them, because I was being a bit more proactive with my healing. So that really, really helped me a lot. So I am proud of myself for being as disciplined and consistent as I was with my morning and night routines. Even if they did shift a bit, it was still executed at the end of the day. So I'm very happy about that. The next thing for me that came up a lot was the idea of me being more open and kind of opening my heart to new connections and new relationships. And I am proud to say that I did just that, and I was able to foster so many new friendships that I didn't expect, but knew that I wanted to kind of open my heart just to new people. And doing so, I really found true friendships that are founded on love and understanding, acceptance, trust, nonsense, because not gonna lie, we're all kind of morons, but in the best way. And I'm grateful that I've been able to do that. I said yes to a lot more things this year. I went out more than I did in the last 2 years because I knew that I wanted to have more experiences, and I knew I wanted to meet new people. And by doing that, I met a bunch of new people that I truly, truly love. And I reconnected with people who kind of understand different parts of my life. I have my book friends, I have my fashion girly friends, and I have people who kind of just get the type of person that I am, and they're very similar in that same way. I'm very grateful that I opened myself up to making these new friendships or new versions of friendships that are in my life. The next theme that came up for me was shadows, your personal shadows. Because I spent so much time in here and I spent so much time journaling, being introspective and kind of paying attention to my emotions, my mental space, and how I move the way I move and why I do and all those things, I was forced to face damn near all of my shadows this year, and it really almost took me out. All the parts of myself that I processed through in therapy came up a lot because I was doing more things and I was interacting with more people and I was putting myself in more situations. Therefore, I was forcing myself into scenarios where I could be triggered. I was triggered more often this year, and those triggers really shined a bright ass light on my shadows and on the parts of myself that I'm not proudest of, the parts of myself that I really want to work on, the parts of myself that I thought I did work on but came back up because I was triggered. My shadows really came to play this year. But I think because they kept coming up, I was able to get to a place where when they do show themselves, I try not to judge myself as harshly when they do come up. I try to be more gentle with myself when dealing with them. So instead of denying them or ignoring them, I kind of spent this year learning to accept them, crying through them, expressing them to those I felt safe expressing them to, just accepting that they exist. And I feel like over time, because I did these things, they had less of a hold on me. And I was able to figure out, how do I want to work through them? How do I want to move through these things that I'm purging that are coming up? For me, my shadows have to do with lingering people-pleasing habits that I thought I had nipped in the bud back in therapy, or insecurities that came up in terms of relationships, clinging on to things that I know I need to let go of, but because of, connection and sentimentality, wanting to cling on to things for dear life, fear, and projecting my fear onto people and having them project onto me, and the trigger of that interaction in itself. I had to face the dark parts of myself as much as I embrace the light part of myself, but I think becoming more comfortable with how frequently they came up, it was less jarring when it happened. I feel like by the end of the year, I was a lot less upset and disappointed and judgmental of them as when they came up. I just learned, and I'm still learning, to just accept them and work through them as they come. So the next thing that I do in preparation for the new year is clearing out space, making room for the things that I want to call in. So for me, what I do when I'm clearing out space, firstly, I quite literally declutter everything. I went through my closets, I went through my desk, my drawers, tote bags that I had hidden. I went through everything, and anything that I don't use or haven't touched in 6 months had to go. I literally cleared everything out. I dusted, I swept, I mopped. I did the entire house to really make physical space for the things that want to come into my life. So that handled the physical. In terms of mental, I wrote down a list of all the things, habits, mentalities that I want to release and let go. I meditated first, wrote out my list, and then I burned the list, really releasing it. As I was burning it and letting it go, I said that I am allowing the universe, spirit, to transmute this energy into love and light for my highest good. So the energy I was releasing, I am transmuting it to work in my favor. And then the last thing I did is I also wrote a more specific letter releasing relationships and habits that were founded on my people-pleasing habits. And that was a little more emotional for me because there's always a chance that when you're asking to release certain things or relationships, you can lose people or lose things that you become attached to. But I've come to accept that whether that means entire relationships are removed or specific versions of certain relationships removed, or habits, things that I've become comfortable doing, things that I've become comfortable accepting or projecting, or whatever the case may be, I've accepted that I'm okay with them being gone because ultimately it's for my highest good and that's what I'm working towards. So that's how I kind of cleared out space for the things that I want to call into my life for the new year. So now comes the fun part for the new year, and that is setting intentions and setting your goals. For me, I think it's very easy for us to go to the material goals that we want to see. We want to make X amount of money, we want to acquire these assets, we want to enforce these habits, things like that. But I really wanted to focus more on my internal goals because I truly believe that working on your inner self is what will allow that same energy to be reflected back to you from the outside world. So by focusing on these things, I'll be in like the best optimal mental space to achieve, my more material goals and my successes and things like that. Some of my goals this year, I won't tell you all of them, but some of my goals this year is expansion. I really want to try new things, learn new things, read different types of books about different types of people and different types of thought processes. I really want to expand and learn more. I think kind of opening my mind in that way will allow me to welcome in different types of experiences that I might not have even thought to look for or pursue otherwise, and it can bring into my life bigger blessings than I could have even imagined. Another goal for me this year is putting more focus on family. I want to show up more actively for my family. I think I took a more passive approach this year, and I think it was something that I needed to do, just internal work that I wanted to do for myself. And clearly I still spent time with them, I still was with them, but I don't feel like I was as active a participant as I could have been. And I think sometimes we take our families for granted because we know, well, I'm lucky that I know that they will always be there for me, but I want to put more of an effort into making sure that I am fostering these deep connections with them, these deep bonds with them. And not that we don't have those relationships, we do, but I think I can show up more for them and show up more actively for them. So that's also a big goal for me this year. Another goal for me this year is I really want to lead a more value-driven life. I did an exercise a couple years ago that kind of allowed me to really identify what my core values are as a person. And I really want to make sure that when I'm moving through life, I'm doing so intentionally and I'm doing so in a way that aligns with those values. So I really want to be more aware of the why behind I'm doing things, why I'm in certain relationships, why I'm doing these certain habits. Like I want the way I'm living to align with what I value. So that's a really big goal of mine. And I'm excited to see how that shifts the trajectory of my life. Those are just some of my inner goals, but also, obviously I have like my external material goals as well, because we all do. I really want to write 5 times a week. I'm working on a project that I'm really excited about, and in order for it to come to fruition, I need consistency. So this year I plan on writing 5 times a week minimum. Another goal of mine is I want to be posting on YouTube at least 4 times a month. That's once a week. That's very doable. That's something that I really want to try to stick to and really want to work on, be consistent with as well. I have my money goals, the amount of savings I want to have, things that I want to invest in this year as well. So I have those material goals as well, but again, I feel like if I focus on my inner work, the things I want on the outside will reflect back to me a lot more easily and more seamlessly as well, because I'm in a energetic space where I can accept and receive those blessings with the least amount of resistance. So yeah. And of course, if you're a visual person, which I kind of also am, a really great way to help you put yourself in the mindset of where you want to be is obviously vision boards. I made mine on Pinterest this year, which is really fun. I've been getting more into Pinterest this year. It's been helping with like my writing project I've been working with, but it also helps in this case as well. So it's really fun just to kind of like see the lifestyle and like the way of living that you want, and you can really put yourself in that mind space. So every morning I wake up and instead of going to Twitter or Instagram, I open up Pinterest and I look at that board instead. So definitely make a vision board this year. Vision boards work. I make them every year. Another way to see it before you can experience it is with meditation and visualization. Like, that's something I do frequently as well. I meditate and I say my mantras and I really envision myself in the spaces I want to be in. I see myself receiving the things that I'm asking, you know, the universe for, receiving the things that I'm working towards, creating the things that I'm working on creating now. Like, I see myself having already done it, and I feel like that also makes it easier for you to actually get to that space because you've seen it. It was already, like, you saw it happen already. And another way to also see these goals before you actually experience it is make sure that every day you're doing things that align with the person that would already have the life that you want to live. So whether that's with new small habits, new routines, like, do things that the future version of you would already be doing in their life, and that will also really help you shift your energy into that space. It will make it a lot easier for you to really accept and believe that you can achieve those things because you're already doing what you would be doing if you had them already. So yeah, friends, that's kind of the prep work that I do, what I'm doing leading up to this new year, and I'm really, really excited for what this year has to bring. I'm just grateful to have learned as much as I did in the previous year. I'm grateful for the things I've experienced, the hardships I went through, because it taught me things about myself. For the new relationships that have come into my life, I'm grateful for the old relationships that kind of came back and have flourished this year as well. I'm so grateful for it. I'm just really excited for what this year has to bring us. So I'm just excited for the new year, y'all. It's gonna be a good year. It's gonna be a great year for all of us. Stay focused, give yourself grace, trust yourself, trust your path, and really love on yourself. I will see you all in the new year. That is so crazy to say, but I will see you guys in the new year. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. You guys can drop down below. What are some of your goals this year? I'd love to hear. I'd love to share some good energy back and forth with you guys about what we want to achieve this year. And I love you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the new year. Bye.